Have you ever been around somebody who just seemingly knows when all foods are in season? Like if you're at a restaurant and they'll look at the menu and they'll be like, asparagus, why is that on here? Asparagus isn't in season. Or I don't eat winter tomatoes. Have you ever heard of something like that? And have you ever wondered why they say those types of things? There's quite a few reasons why eating food with the seasons is more sustainable and better for your health. And today I want to talk about it. Hi, I'm Kelly and I study food science and I'm an advocate for sustainable eating. And this is my channel Made to Sustain, where I help you make better decisions around eating food that's good for you and good for the planet. To start, food that is considered in season has to do a lot with the growing cycles. So if you're somebody who likes gardening or you live around a farm, you might notice that, you can only pick berries during certain times of the year. Or this is why you can only go to the pumpkin patch in the fall. Or why the best time to pick apples is also in the fall. Going to a corn maze or visiting your local cranberry bog to watch the fields flood, they can only be done during certain times of the year. And that's because crops have a certain season of planting where maybe you'll start them in the early spring and they'll take maybe 45 days to harvest. Or something like a pepper takes maybe 72 days to harvest. So the time that you plant the seed to the time that you're able to pick it, it all depends, right? Some crops like sunnier weather, some crops like cold weather. Things like herbs need a ton of sunlight, so they do best in the summertime, or things like squash grow best in the fall and tend to last all winter. So these are just a couple examples of eating with the seasons, but if you want the complete seasonal produce guide, make sure you check out my link down below. But now, why is it better to eat with the seasons? If you're eating food that's with the seasons, there's a high chance that it's more local to you, and that's because the food that's grown in season is grown in your season. So that means food that's grown within season and more locally to you is going to have better quality and better flavor. And that's because these fruits and vegetables are picked at peak ripeness and then brought directly to your grocery store or your farmer's market, where you can get them and they're ready to use right away. Where comparing this with something like a berry available at the grocery store in the wintertime, this is coming from another part of the world and has to be transported by a boat or by an airplane to get to you so you can eat it when it's available. But some people might ask, Kelly, I don't understand. I'm able to get fresh blueberries in the grocery store in February. Why is that? That's because these berries are coming from another part of the world where they're harvested early and put on a boat to ripen as they get delivered here. So food that's grown within your own season doesn't have to take that extra amount of time for it to ship from one part of the world to another. So that means you're going to be getting it at peak freshness. The second reason why eating with the seasons is better for you and the planet is because you're going to be getting food that is more nutritionally dense. We talked about that ripeness, right? One of my favorite examples is a winter tomato versus a summer tomato. So a winter tomato, if you've ever noticed at the grocery store, is going to be like rock hard. It's going to look a little bit more like a rosy red rather than a summertime tomato, which is going to be a robust tomato red, where those winter tomatoes are going to be rock hard, and when you slice into them, they're going to be pretty mealy, and they're not going to have a lot of texture. They're not going to have a lot of color. They're not going to have a lot of flavor. They're also not going to have a lot of nutrients. A summer tomato, on the other hand, is going to be ripe for the picking and brought to you when it's at its highest quality, which means it's going to be able to absorb as much nutrients from the vine as it can before being put on your plate. The third reason why eating foods in season are better for you and the planet is that they actually help support your local economies and support your local farmers. When you support a farmer that's within your area, you are in turn putting that money back into your community rather than paying a big corporate farm to contract and grow all of your food. So I always like to recommend to support the local farmers as much as possible, just for the reason that it is better for your local community and you might see a more immediate effect to it anyway. The last reason why eating seasonally is better for you and the planet is because foods that are grown in the season often have a lower carbon footprint than foods that have come from further away. So if we go back to that example of the berries available in the wintertime that are put on a ship to ripen as they're delivered up here, foods that are grown seasonally and locally don't have that extra time where it takes to get from Peru to where I am in the mid-Atlantic region. You have less of that distance traveled called food miles. And if you're interested in learning more about that, I'll link that up here. I did a whole video on it. I think it's really important to know about. You're going to have a reduced carbon footprint based on transportation alone. Definitely something worth noting and definitely something to take into account when we're trying to eat in a way that's better for us and better for the planet. And if you're interested in learning more about what foods are in season, I have a seasonal produce guide linked down below, and it costs $1. That's it. That's all that it is. I hope you realize why eating with the seasons is so beneficial for you and for the planet. And I hope you like this video. Make sure you check out the seasonal produce guide down below, and don't forget to check out this video on food miles so you can learn a little bit more about food miles and their impact on your plate. See you in the next one.